It was raining heavily that evening. The wind was cold, and the sky had already turned dark. The woman had just come home from a long shift at the local grocery store. She was tired. Her feet hurt. Her dinner sat untouched on the small table. In her living room, all she wanted was to lie down and forget the world for a little. But then came a knock, soft, almost like a whisper. She froze. No one ever came to her door this late. Not in this neighborhood. It wasn't a place people dropped by for friendly visits. She stood still for a moment, unsure if she'd imagined the sound. Then the knock came again, this time a little louder. She slowly walked to the door and peeked through the small window. What she saw made her heart sink. A little boy stood outside, maybe 6 or 7 years old. His clothes were soaked, clinging to his thin body. His hair was wet and dripping. Beside him stood an old woman, leaning on a cane with one hand and holding the boy's arm with the other. Her head was covered with a scarf, but her face looked pale and tired. Her lips were trembling from the cold. The woman didn't hesitate. She opened the door wide and motioned them inside. "Come in, you'll catch your death out there." The boy looked unsure at first, but the old woman gave him a small nod. They stepped inside. The woman grabbed some towels and handed them over. The boy didn't speak much. He just said thank you, barely above a whisper. She helped them get dry and led them to the small couch near the heater. She didn't ask questions right away. Something about the boy's quiet eyes and the way the old woman struggled to sit made her feel like now wasn't the time. She made some tea and gave them a bowl of hot soup she had left from the day before. The boy ate quickly, as if he hadn't had a real meal in days. The old woman was slower but thankful. She kept nodding and saying, "Bless you," under her breath. Finally, when they seemed a little warmer, the woman gently asked, "Where are you two from?" The boy looked at the old woman. She nodded. "We don't have a place right now," he said softly. "We've been moving around. We were trying to get to the hospital, but we got lost." The woman's heart ached. The old woman looked like she needed help fast. Her breathing was heavy and her hands were shaking. "Where's your family, your parents?" The boy looked down. "They're not around anymore." It was quiet for a while after that. The only sound was the wind outside and the soft ticking of the clock. The woman didn't know what to say. She lived alone. She didn't have much herself, just enough to get by. But looking at the boy, sitting close to the sick old woman, she knew she couldn't let them go back out into that cold night. "You can stay here for tonight," she said finally. "It's not much, but it's warm." The boy's eyes filled with tears. He nodded quickly, then buried his face into the old woman's arm. The woman pulled out a few blankets and laid them on the couch. She gave the boy one of her old sweaters to wear and handed the old woman an extra pillow. That night, the woman couldn't sleep. She kept checking on them, making sure the old woman was breathing okay, making sure the boy was still warm. Her mind was racing. Who were they? Where had they come from? What had they been through? She thought about calling someone, maybe the police or child services. But something in her heart told her to wait, just for the night. Just give them peace. The boy had finally stopped shivering. The old woman looked like she was in pain, but she had a small smile on her face. Maybe it was the first warm place they had found in a long time. As the night wore on, the woman sat on the edge of her bed, listening to the storm outside. She thought about how strange life was, how in just one moment, everything could change. She didn't know it yet, but this quiet night, this small act of kindness was going to lead to something much bigger than she ever imagined. Something that would change her life too. The morning sun broke through the gray clouds, but the air was still cold. The rain had stopped, but puddles lined the streets, and everything outside felt damp and quiet. Inside the small house, the woman was already awake. She hadn't slept much. She had kept checking the couch every hour, making sure the boy and the old woman were okay. The boy was still asleep, curled up under the blanket, his small hands holding the edge tightly. But the old woman didn't look well. Her face had gone pale again, and her breath sounded worse than last night. The woman walked over gently and whispered, "Ma'am, are you all right?" The old woman opened her eyes slowly. She tried to smile, but it looked forced. "My chest. It hurts," she said weakly. The woman didn't waste a second. She quickly got dressed, packed a small bag with water, and told the boy, "We're taking your grandma to the clinic, okay?" The boy looked scared. "Is she gonna be okay?" "We'll find out. But we can't wait. She needs a doctor now." She helped the old woman into her small car. The boy sat in the back seat, holding her hand the whole ride. The drive to the local clinic wasn't far, but it felt long with worry pressing on all of them. At the clinic, the nurse saw the old woman's condition and rushed her in. The boy sat silently in the waiting area, his legs swinging off the edge of the chair. He looked too small to carry such a big weight on his shoulders. The woman sat beside him. "She be okay," she said softly. The boy nodded but didn't answer. After a while, the doctor came out. He looked serious. "She has a bad infection in her lungs," he said. "She needs rest, antibiotics, and someone to care for her regularly. She's weak, and without care, it could get worse fast." The woman's heart dropped. She didn't have money for hospital bills. And these two, they had nothing. The doctor looked at her kindly. "Are you family?" She hesitated. "No." She said honestly, "They showed up at my door last night. They had nowhere to go." The doctor looked surprised but not judgmental. "That was kind of you," he said. "But they'll need more help than just one night." The woman stepped outside to call a few local shelters, but none had space. Some said they couldn't take in someone as sick as the old woman. Others said they were full. Every call ended in the same way, "Sorry, we can't help." She returned to the waiting room and sat down beside the boy. He looked up at her with tired eyes. "Are they going to take us away?" he asked. She didn't know how to answer that. "Do you have anyone else?" she asked gently. The boy shook his head. "Just Grandma. My parents, they died last year. We were with a friend for a while, but he moved. Since then, we've been moving around." The woman blinked away, the sting in her eyes. She didn't want to cry in front of him. "I don't have much," she said softly. "But if you both need a place to stay for a while, you can come back with me." The boy looked confused. "Really?" She nodded. "I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but today, I can help." Later that afternoon, after getting the old woman's medicine and instructions, they returned to the woman's small home. She cleared out her bedroom and gave it to the grandma. She put the boy in her own bed and moved herself to the couch. That evening, the boy helped her cook rice and soup. He didn't talk much, but he kept looking at her as if trying to understand why she was doing all this. She didn't have an answer. She just knew it felt right. That night, the boy stood quietly by the doorway of the living room. "Thank you," he said. She smiled. "You don't have to thank me. Just rest. Take care of your grandma." He nodded, and for the first time, a small smile touched his lips. As she lay on the couch, wrapped in an old blanket, her phone buzzed. A message from work. She had missed a shift. She sighed. She was already behind on bills. And now she had 2 more mouths to feed. But somehow, she didn't feel regret. Something inside her said this was the right path, even if it was hard. Even if she didn't know what would come next. But what she didn't know was that by the next morning, everything would start to change in a way she could never imagine. The next morning, the woman woke up early. The sun was peeking through the window, and for a moment, everything felt peaceful. The boy was still asleep, curled under the covers in her bed. The old woman had made it through the night and was resting. Quietly in the bedroom, her breathing was slow but steady. The woman went to the kitchen and started boiling water for tea. She opened the window slightly to let the fresh morning air in. It smelled of wet earth and sunshine. Despite her worries about money and missing work, she felt calm. Something about helping them felt right. She made toast and a little porridge for breakfast. As she placed the bowls on the table, she heard a noise outside. A car engine. It didn't sound like any car in her neighborhood. It was quiet, smooth, too expensive. She stepped toward the window and peeked through the curtain. A black SUV had stopped right outside her house. Her heart skipped a beat. It was large, polished, and clearly expensive. She didn't know anyone. Who drove something like that? The car door opened, and a man in a dark suit stepped out. He looked serious but not angry. He stood still for a moment, then walked toward her door. The woman quickly went to the boy, who had just woken up. "Do you know him?" she asked gently. The boy looked toward the door and froze. That's the man from the shelter," he said quietly. "I think he was looking for us." Before she could ask more, the knock came. Firm, not threatening. She opened the door slowly. "Good morning," the man said politely. "I'm sorry to bother you so early. I believe you may have taken in a young boy and his grandmother?" She didn't answer right away. She wasn't sure who he was or what he wanted. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he added quickly. "I've been searching for them for days. Please, may I come in for a moment?" She looked at the boy. He gave a small nod. She stepped aside. The man entered quietly. His eyes went to the boy immediately. "There you are," he said softly. "We've been worried." He crouched down to the boy's level. "Do you remember me?" The boy nodded slowly. "You helped my grandma once. You gave us food." The man smiled. "Yes, that was a long time ago. I worked for the family your mother used to work for. When we heard what happened, we tried to find you. But you were already gone from the shelter." The woman listened carefully, still unsure of what this all meant. The man stood up and turned to her. "His mother worked as a caregiver for my father years ago. She was kind, honest, and always helped others. Before my father passed away, he made me promise if her family ever needed help, we would be there. But we lost track of them." He looked down for a moment, then back up. "When I heard about a boy and his sick grandmother moving from place to place, I knew it had to be them. We've been searching since." The woman felt her chest tighten. Everything was happening so fast. "I understand you've done something very kind," the man said gently. "Taking them in when they had no one. That's not something many people would do." She didn't know what to say. She wasn't looking for thanks. She just did what she thought was right. "I'd like to offer help," the man continued. "Real help. Medical care for the grandmother. A safe home. Education. For the boy, we can take them back. Give them everything they need." The boy suddenly grabbed the woman's hand. "I don't want to go without her," he said. The man looked surprised. The woman knelt beside the boy. "It's okay, they just want to help you." "But I want you there too," the boy whispered. "You're our home now." Tears filled her eyes. She had never expected this. The man was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "What if I made another offer?" he said. "Come with them. Live with them. Help take care of them. I can provide support, a job, a home for all of you." She looked at him, shocked. I don't know. You don't have to answer." "Now," he said kindly, "but please think about it. You changed their lives. Let us help change yours." He handed her a card and gave the boy a gentle pat on the shoulder. "I'll be nearby. Just call when you're ready." Then he turned and left, the black SUV pulling away down the quiet street. The woman stood at the door, holding the card, her hand trembling slightly. The boy held her other hand tightly, as if afraid she might disappear. She looked down at him, and she began to wonder. Maybe this was the start of something far bigger than she had ever imagined. That night, the woman couldn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table, holding the business card in her hands. It felt heavy for something so small. The man's words kept playing in her head. You changed their lives. Let us help change yours. She looked toward the bedroom. The old woman was resting after her evening medicine. The boy had fallen asleep with his small arm wrapped around a stuffed toy she had found in her old storage box. It wasn't new, but it brought him comfort. He hadn't let go of it all evening. The woman sighed. This was more than she ever expected. When she opened her door that rainy night, she got up and walked to the window. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. Most houses were dark. People were either asleep or watching old TV shows. But her mind was still racing. She had questions. What if this was a trick? What if the man's offer wasn't real? But something in his eyes told her he wasn't lying. He didn't seem like the type to make empty promises. Still, it was hard to trust. She had spent most of her life doing things on her own, working hard, paying rent, skipping meals some nights just to make ends meet. No one had ever offered her a way out. And now someone was offering her a new life, just like that. The next morning, she made breakfast quietly. The boy sat at the table, looking at her, but not saying much. It was like he knew she was thinking deeply. Finally, he asked, "Are we leaving?" She looked at him and smiled gently. "I don't know yet. I'm still thinking." He nodded and continued eating. After breakfast, she helped the old woman sit by the window, wrapped in a blanket. The sun was shining and the birds outside were chirping. It was peaceful. Later that afternoon, her phone rang. It was the same man. His voice was calm and respectful. "I just wanted to check in," he said. "No pressure. I just want you to know the offer still stands." She paused. Then she asked the question that had been sitting in her heart all night. "Why me?" There was silence for a moment. "Because people like you don't come around often," he said. "You gave shelter to strangers. You fed a child you didn't know. You risked your own comfort for theirs. That's not something we forget. That's something we value." She didn't know what to say. "I want to show you that kindness doesn't go unseen," he continued. "We have a guest house on the property. You'd have your own space. We can arrange for your work, medical help for the grandmother, school for the boy. You wouldn't be alone." She looked at the boy, who was now helping his grandma sip warm water. She had no family, no partner, no big dreams anymore. Just a heart that always wished it could do more for others. But now, someone wanted to help her, not just with words, but with action. She took a deep breath and said softly, "Can I come see the place before I decide?" "Of course," the man replied. "I'll send the car tomorrow morning." That night, she told the boy, "We're going to visit a place tomorrow. Just to look, no promises." He smiled, a real smile, the first full one she'd seen on him. The next morning, the black SUV returned. The same driver greeted her kindly and opened the door. The boy sat close beside her, holding her hand tightly. The old woman had been helped into the back seat with gentle care by a nurse who came along, sent by the man. As they drove, the city began to fade, replaced by trees, open roads, and cleaner air. Finally, they pulled into a large gated area. It wasn't a mansion. It was something warmer. A wide, peaceful house surrounded by gardens, a small school building in the back, and a large greenhouse filled with plants and sunlight. The man came out to greet them. He was smiling. "This is home," he said. "If you want it." She stepped out slowly, looking around. It didn't feel fake. It didn't feel too good to be true. It just felt right. He walked her through the guest house. It had 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, and a porch with a swing. "We built this for people who needed a new beginning," he said. "You're not the first, and you won't be the last. But this place has healed many hearts." The woman looked At the boy, who was already chasing a butterfly on the lawn, laughing softly. She felt something inside her shift. For the first time in years, her heart felt light. She turned to the man. "We'll stay," she said, and with that, her old life quietly faded behind her, and a new one began. The days passed like pages turning in a peaceful book. The woman had never lived in a place so quiet, so full of light. The guest house they moved into felt more like a home than anywhere she had ever known. The rooms were simple but warm. The kitchen had everything she needed. The bed was soft. The boy had his own room, filled with books and toys donated by kind strangers. And the old woman, she had a proper bed, clean sheets, and a nurse who came every morning to check on her. Change was slow but real. The boy smiled more now. He laughed when he played outside. He helped the woman water the plants and set the table. He no longer looked over his shoulder with fear. He was just a child again. The old woman, too, had grown stronger. The medicine, the regular meals, and the calm environment had given her new life. Some mornings she even sat on the porch with the woman, sipping tea and telling soft stories from the past. One evening, the woman stood in the backyard, watching the sunset. The sky was painted in orange and pink, and everything looked like a painting. The man came walking toward her, holding a folder. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," he said kindly. She shook her head. "Not at all. I have something for you," he said, handing her the folder. She opened it slowly and found inside a document offering her a full-time position at the foundation he ran. It wasn't just a job, it was a meaningful one. She would help organize care packages, assist with outreach to shelters, and guide other women who found themselves helping strangers, just like she had. "It's not fancy work," he said, "but it matters." The woman looked up, her eyes wide. "I never asked for anything," she said softly. "I know," he replied. "That's why you deserve it." She felt her throat tighten. Her whole life, she had worked hard for every coin, every loaf of bread, every bit of peace. And now, here was something offered freely, not out of pity, but out of respect. Nodded slowly. "I'll do my best." "I know you will," he smiled. The next few weeks moved gently. She started work at the foundation, helping other people who had fallen on hard times. She met women who had once slept in cars, young boys who had lost their way, and tired old souls who had no one left. She didn't just help them, she understood them. And they felt that. One morning, she walked into the foundation's office and found a letter on her desk. It was from the boy, written in small, uneven letters. "Thank you for not giving up on us." She sat there holding the letter, her heart full. That evening, she took the boy to a small park nearby. They sat on a bench, watching the ducks float across a quiet pond. "Do you miss your old life?" he asked suddenly. She thought for a moment. "I don't miss the hard days," she said. "But I'm thankful for them. They brought you to my door." He leaned his head against her arm. "Me too." Across the park, the black SUV was parked quietly. The man waited near it, giving them their space. He wasn't just the man who found them anymore. He had become something more, a friend, a guide, a reminder that sometimes, when the world seems cruel, someone good is still watching. The woman looked up at the sky. It was the same sky from the night she first heard that soft knock. The same world. But everything had changed because of one choice, one open door, one act of kindness. She didn't have much when it all started. Just a small home, a tired heart, and a quiet strength she didn't know she carried. But now, she had a family. Not by blood, but by love. She had the boy who looked up to her like she was the sun, the old woman who smiled with quiet gratitude, and a purpose to help others who had nowhere to go. As the wind gently blew through the trees, she whispered to herself, This is the life I didn't know I was waiting for." And just like that, she smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because it was real, because it was home.